top 5 players who need to improve for Texas. Pretty open-ended. I didn't say there was any stipulations on how long they had to play for Texas. So, Gerald, I'll let you start out. Who's your number 5? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
I muted during the ad because I needed to get a drink of water.
Okay.
So my number 5 player for Texas is actually Jarrett Gibson. I know he's probably not one that you expected on the list, but I think Jarrett Gibson is a kid who played a lot and had a heavy workload early in the season last year, and then had some fumble issues and saw his production dry up because of that. And I think if Texas is going to be able to shore up some of their issues, especially in the red zone and short yardage situations, Jarrett Gibson's going to need to say something about that, right? He is that prototypical short yardage, like stick your nose in there and get 3 yards, fall forward for 3 yards kind of player. And I think for Texas to be who they are, and like you said, CJ Baxter is not cleared for full contact at this point. Again, it's July 14th, so we've got plenty of time before the season. But ultimately, if Texas is going to need and keep him healthy, right, because he's coming off of a knee injury, and you've got Christian Clark who's coming off an Achilles. And as much as I love Trey Wisner, and again, I feel like we get a rep for dogging on Trey Wisner. He's not your inside the tackle short yardage back. He's just not, right? And so if you've got a still banged up CJ Baxter, you've got Trey Wisner, who's not going to be the guy to bang inside the tackles. Jarrett Gibson really needs to figure out how to hold on to the ball for Texas to hopefully, now the offensive line will have something to say about it, but Texas being able to get that 2 yards. I'd have to throw a toss at Caleb downside of the field in the red zone. That's a Jarrett Gibson. And I think he's a guy, if he can develop and if he can really hold on to the ball, Texas has a lot of improvement that can come in the short yardage game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. For me, it was just too hard to pick a running back out of that room, especially the guy I think is probably the second most talented guy on the roster is Christian Clark, but he's coming back from injury. So I didn't include running backs on this. Number 5 for me is Alex January. I think Alex January is a good football player, and he showed that, I thought, down the stretch of last season. But we need someone that's homegrown to step up in that room, because that will be a point that other teams will look at and say, hey, listen, they can't develop their own guys really. Because let's be honest here, all these guys that went to the NFL, they were inherited. They were inherited from the Tom Herman era. None of these guys were recruited. So really none of the recruits under Sark have developed yet. And if Alex January doesn't, they're going to say, they have to either inherit that person or go get that person in the portal. So I think he needs to have a really good season. I think he will. He was talked about all last spring. That everyone said, hey, look at Colin Simmons. And other people were like, yeah, what about that other Duncanville kid? He's doing a really good job as well. I think Alex January needs to improve, and I think he's going to have a breakout season.
Yeah, he's a guy who I think Texas needs to have a breakout season. And I think they're going to have to moneyball this defensive tackle position. I think it's going to be, a lot of different. That's no shot at Alex January. He's a sophomore, right? True sophomore. So he's 19, 20-ish coming in there. There's a difference between a 22, 23-year-old and a 20-year-old's body. It's just kind of how physiology works. So yeah, I think he's a guy who absolutely will have a lot to say if he can develop. So I'm going to stay in that vein. And I think Ethan Burke is a guy who needs to get better. Not that he's not good. Not that I don't think Ethan Burke is a solid player. But what we saw last year with the edges is that offenses had to pick their poison, right? Are you going to put assets towards Colin Simmons? Are you going to put assets towards Trey Moore? Trey Moore is now moving back, it looks like, to linebacker rather than playing a more traditional hand in the dirt edge. And so if you can have a guy like Ethan Burke or maybe Colton Vasek, I'm not sure who, probably Ethan Burke. If you have a guy like Ethan Burke, that can become a nuisance along the edge. That can become a guy who's going to cause offenses to have to pay him attention, then that frees up the rest of the defense, especially Colin Simmons, who is an all-world kind of guy at the edge, right? If Ethan Burke can be a guy who they have to keep a running back in, offenses are going to have to start picking their poison again. And Ethan Burke is a guy who can really open things up for this edge rush and make this defense elite yet again.
No, I agree. It's funny. I have number 4 as Ethan Burke as well. So we completely agree on that. And we'll get to your comments, guys, at the end. I see Gilbo needs to improve as well. Yeah, I don't have him on the list.
He's on my list.
Yeah, okay, well, we can talk about him when we get there. But I agree with Ethan Burke. I have an issue with this. So Barron Sorrell got a lot of hate for whatever reason from the Texas fan base. Not from me. I loved him. I think he was an underrated player for Texas.
Yeah,
Really good at setting the edge, especially in the run game. He was a fantastic
absolutely.
against the run game. Ethan Burke is basically Barron Sorrell, but gets none of the hate. Like I hear no one say, you know what, Ethan Burke hasn't lived up to what we thought he'd be. He's basically the same player. He actually might be a little bit worse. So I don't understand that personally, but hey, I think Ethan Burke does need to improve. He's still a really good football player. He'll play in the NFL, but I don't think he would get drafted as high right now as Barron Sorrell. I believe Barron Sorrell was a 3rd round pick. Right now, I think Ethan Burke would probably be about a 4th or 5th round pick, honestly.
I don't even know if I'd go that high at him at this point, but I think again, people are going to miss Barron Sorrell. I was a big Barron Sorrell fan. I love the way he played, especially like on the backside of plays. It's an underappreciated thing he did, setting the edge along the backside. Teams were not cutting back on him.
No, I mean, that's why he got drafted. He's immovable against the run. He's fantastic against the run. Never gave up on plays. He's not going to be used as a passer. That's not what he is. He's like a 3 to 4 sack guy that's really good against the run in the NFL. That's what he is.
100%. And that's what Texas needed.
100%. Number 3 for me, Devon Campbell. I don't think Devon Campbell has lived up to the hype at all from where he was recruited. Again, people got on Quinn Ewers and being like, well, he hasn't lived up to the hype, Devon Campbell hasn't even come anywhere near the hype he was out of high school. Number 1 rated interior offensive lineman. I think he might have been the number 1 rated of like the past half decade, and he has not lived up to that. Like out of our starting offensive linemen, those 5 guys, he came back for a reason. Like every one of those guys other than Jake Majors didn't get drafted. I don't know if Devon Campbell would have got drafted. He might have got drafted off of measurables in high school because they do that sometimes. But that's the only reason. He has not lived up to the hype. So I need a contract type season out of Devon Campbell this year.
I have him on my list as well, but a little higher. So I'm going to hold off on that. My next 2 are going to seem repetitive, but I think the first one, my number 3 is Manny Muhammad. And I think Victor in the chat said that as well. I think Manny Muhammad is a guy who had really high expectations of himself and of Texas last year, or Texas fans had of him last year, and he regressed a bit. And I think Texas is going to be playing a lot of teams that have elite pass catchers. I think he's going to need to be a lockdown. We're going to need to see Muhammad Island come back and flourish because he was some of that his freshman year. He was that guy who was a lockdown kind of guy. He could lock down a side of the field. And I absolutely think Texas needs that from him with the things that they're recycling in the secondary. I think Manny Muhammad is a guy who probably is due for a year. He's got all of the measurables. He's got all of the things that you want between or with a defender, but it's just something happened last year. I'm not sure what it was. If it was a confidence thing, if it was a motivation thing, I'm not sure what it was, but he was not quite as effective as he was his freshman year.
No, I agree. And I have him a little bit higher. That was your number 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my number 2 is Ryan Wingo. I think Ryan Wingo needs to become the guy that, we expected when he was coming to Texas. I didn't expect him to pop off his freshman year. This is the year I expected him to pop off. So I guess he just needs to be who I expected him to be, which is, I said this, might have been a hot take, but I think he's the best wide receiver to step on campus since Roy Williams. That's how talented I think Ryan Wingo is. So can he hit that 1,000-yard mark? I think that he should be able to do that in this offense because I think Arch is going to be able to hit the plays down the field that will get him those chunk yardage that he needs. And we've seen the ability in open space. I think he's going to be able to create yards after catch, but are they going to be able to hit him down the field? Is he able to bring those in? We'll have to see. We need someone to step up in that room as well to become that alpha guy because right now we don't have one. We really we thought Isaiah Bond was going to be that guy at the beginning of the year, so we thought we had one. It turned out to be Matthew Golden. This year, we really don't know. Like, no one knows. Some people say DeAndre Moore. Some people say Ryan Wingo. Some people say we're not going to have one. It's going to be by committee. So I do think we need a bona fide number 1 guy, and I think that needs to be Ryan Wingo. So I have him at number 2.
Yeah, my honorable mentions, like my 6 on the board, I literally put in my notes, pick any wide receiver, because I think somebody in that room has to step up and be the dude, right? Texas has had a dude. This is an offense that really thrives on having a dude. So I'm with you there. So my number 2 guy is Jaylen Gilbo, right? I think that's why it's repetitive with my last pick and I think Jaylen Gilbo is a really, really talented defender, but the shoes he's stepping into are massive, right? Jahdae Barron is going to be a guy who's hard to replace. Period. End of sentence. Your defense is not as good as it can be when you have to replace a guy like Jahdae Barron. I've been banging the drum for Jahdae Barron for 4 years now because I thought he was the most slept on defender in the country for multiple years, and last year proved that, right? But now Jaylen Gilbo, who's a guy who has a very similar skill set, who has a very similar kind of swagger and attitude about him, who's going to step into that role. And if he can have one really good year in that spot, that's an NFL contract for him. He's a guy who I think can come, and he's got the body that they like in the NFL. He's got that skill set that they like. He can support the run, and he can play against the pass as well. He's very aggressive, likes to hit, doesn't shy away from contact. If he can have a year that I think we all think he's capable of, this Texas defense is going to be nasty yet again. It's a big win for Texas. It's a big win for him because I think he will hear his name called early if he can have. It doesn't need to be the Thorpe Award win. He doesn't need to be everything that Jahdae Barron was a year ago. But if we can get 65-70% of what Jahdae Barron was out of Jaylen Gilbo, I think this Texas defense is going to be very, very good.
No, I agree. And yeah, it's weird. I don't know who's going to be cornerback 2. I don't think you can really slide him back in because I think Jelani McDonald's going to be the nickel. I said this way before that even they switched that too. Like, he just fits nickel. Like, he's perfect for the nickel back position. Yeah. He's like a mini Jade. He loves to lay the wood. He's really good against the run. He can move sideline to sideline and in space pretty well. So I don't think you can move Jaylen Gilbo back to the nickel. So he's going to have to win the job outside to be able to get big playing time. And I don't know if he can do that because of Kobe Black. So we'll have to see. Number 1 for me is Manny Muhammad. You need a number 1 bona fide cornerback. That's why I have Ryan Wingo and Manny Muhammad, because you need a number 1 wide receiver in the Sark system. You need that you can go to consistently. You need a number 1 cornerback. And hopefully we can have that. We saw when we didn't have that, guys, with Ryan Watts on the outside and Terrence Brooks, like 2 okay cornerbacks. And guess what happened? Michael Penix in the college football playoff torched us. I'm not saying anyone on our schedule is capable of that. I don't know. The only one I can think of is DJ Lagway, honestly. That'd be pretty interesting if you have okay cornerbacks, not anyone great out there. And I don't even need him to be great. Can he be year 1 Manny Muhammad? Can he be he was the 2nd highest rated cornerback in the Big 12 according to PFF. Can he be that? That's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking to make this jump to be first team all SEC. Can you be third team all SEC? If you're third team all SEC, I think Texas has a really successful season.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said that. I think Manny Muhammad, if he can be more of his freshman year, then I think Texas is fine. My number 1, I said it already, DJ Campbell. DJ Campbell is a guy who I had very high hopes for. I was really in love with DJ Campbell coming out of high school. I went into it with my eyes wide open, though, because of the offense he plays in high school. He was, was a very run heavy. He would need to develop a lot in his pass settings. But just you look at that guy. He's a first off the bus kind of guy. He's the guy who is everything you want from a physical specimen at an interior offensive lineman. Everything you want, but just something hasn't clicked, and I'm not sure what it is. Right? I don't know if it's a processing speed thing. I don't know if it's just a want to thing. I don't know if he's one of those guys that used to have a bad rep at Texas, where they get to Texas and then they kind of just coast. I don't know what that is. I don't think those guys last in this culture, so I'm not sure what it is. But he's really struggled with his eye discipline. He's really struggled with finding work when he doesn't have somebody across the face from him in pass protection. He's a guy who I really think should have and could have been out and gone this year if he had lived up to his potential, because we see Kelvin Banks, who was also a 5-star lineman in that class, gone to the NFL, right? DJ Campbell, this is your year, man. This is your year to make yourself the alpha dog in that room. This is your year to make yourself a national name and to get your name called on Sundays, because if he continues to play like he has for these last several years, he might get drafted late off of measurables, but he's a guy who should be one of the top, no doubt, interior offensive linemen on the board. They don't take guards in the first round generally, unless they're like generational kind of guys, but he should be a second, third kind of round offensive lineman that teams are clamoring and chomping at the bit to have, and he just hasn't lived up to that. And it's been really disappointing for somebody who's a big fan of his. So I want this for him as much as I want it for myself, right? I want him to have the success that I know he's capable of. Like, I want DJ Campbell to be that dude.
No, I agree. And that's the thing too, when you think about Kyle Flood here, he's developed the tackles very well. The guards to center position has been okay. It hasn't, listen, it's way better than we had before, but this is a guy that we definitely need to take that step forward and be that second, third round pick. Hell, be a first round pick if possible, because if you are that generational type dude, you see Zach Martin getting drafted as like a top 10 pick. Guys like that play forever, do a really good job. Quentin Nelson as well. So maybe he can be that guy. I don't know. He's inconsistent. That's what it is. You'll see some plays like, damn, that's a really good play. And then you'd be like, okay, what is going on here? I mean, he got replaced for Cole Hudson in games last year, guys. Like, let's be honest, dude. There are games where he did not play that well. So, consistency. Let's see if he can, do that this year. But that's our top 5. Let us know in the comments who are your top 5 players that need to improve for Texas to have a really good season. Victor's been dropping some names, and I agree. I think Gilbo, for me, would definitely be in my top 7 or 8. Someone at that corner 2 position has to take that bull by the horns and just be a good football player out there. I'm not asking for all SEC type guy, but can you be a good football player out there, not get beat, not be a liability, the guy that gets picked on all the time?
Yeah, it's that defensive back room. There's so much talent at corner. There's so much talent at safety. I just don't know what any of them are going to do. Victor says in the chat, Leifau needs to be better. I agree there. I think Leifau is a guy who, he had a longer development curve coming into Texas. And I think he has been really good against the run. I think, and that's going to be, I think, one of Texas's Achilles heels this year is linebackers and pass coverage, because as much as I love Anthony Hill, he's also been a bit of a liability there. So I think they both have an opportunity to grow and develop there. Leifau is a guy who he has an incredible athletic motor. He's got incredible athleticism about him. Again, I'm not sure what has been the issue for him. He hasn't really had to be called on a ton. So, this is going to be a second year as the guy. So I'm curious to see what he develops into. I'm with you, Victor.
I will say though, Sark, without being asked the question, he just asked who was like the room that improved or impressed you the most, and he said the linebacker room. So, I mean, that tells me a lot about that room, and overall, I think we'll be pretty good in there. So, I'm not really super concerned there because they've been cross-training Trey Moore and Brad Spence as well. So if Leifau isn't good enough, they'll just go with one of those 2 guys as well. And Leifau down the stretch, I thought played really, really good football.
Yeah,
and that's
I think there were spots. I think there were spots where honestly he looked better than Anthony Hill in some spots where Anthony Hill, again, gets lost in pass coverage sometimes. I think Leifau had some plays where I chat with some other guys on Saturdays during the games. My friend Daniel, who played offensive line at UAB, and he and I love Leifau and his ability to fill the run. When he's good, he's really good. You see flashes of it. You see opportunities for him to improve on it. But I think he's a guy who, if we get closer to the ceiling more often from him, then I think this defense is going to be in a good spot.
No, I agree.